Hello and welcome to episode 24 of Tom's Sprung's podcast. Very special guest today. My guest this time is Vicky Welsh. We are going to talk about IBD, ulcerative colitis, and more importantly, we're going to talk about fitness as well. One of my big passions and Vicky's as well. So Vicky, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us, Tom. Thank you.
No problem at all. So as I said, we will talk about fitness and we'll talk about your journey in particular a little bit later on down the line. We'll start the story in and around November 2021, so late 2021. So you were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Did you have sort of any idea when they said you have ulcerative colitis, do you have any idea as to what that might mean or what that could be? How did that sort of pan itself out?
No, I'd never heard of colitis. I'd heard of Crohn's, but I'd never heard of ulcerative colitis, so I really didn't understand what it meant and what it was going to lead to. Leading up to the diagnosis, I had suffered with IBS for years, but things were a little bit different, and that's why I've been at the GP and I ended up having the tests and showed that I had ulcerative colitis. So I wasn't sure if it was going to be similar to that or what it meant. And I was pretty much told that I would be seen in clinic a few weeks later. I'd be given some medication and that would be it. Life would go back to normal. Little did I know that it wasn't like that at all. And it was quite a rough journey. And even during the diagnosis, I had a lot of anxiety around it because I'd had a very uncomfortable conversation with the GP that pretty much told us I had bowel cancer. So my anxiety was absolutely through the roof. Which I don't think helped like the diagnosis stage, and I think led to me flaring more because of the anxiety and stress that I was going through at that point.
Definitely. I think that's the important point that you make just there, that a lot of gut health, and I'm not just saying this, I did speak to a doctor about this a couple of weeks ago, but gut health and mental health are really, really highly connected. So if you are quite anxious about something and you do have a stomach condition of some sort, then the two are very much entwined and interlinked. So if you do have that sort of that anxious conversation, as you said, with your GP, that can lead to flare-ups as well. So yeah, that definitely tallies up with a conversation I had with an expert a couple of weeks ago. So you originally go, and as I'm right in saying, went to the GP, had colonoscopy, and they diagnosed with ulcerative colitis.
Yeah.
Was there, so did they say, right, because you said about just having some medication and then cracking on with life. Obviously it's a little bit more complicated than that. What did they then sort of say to you as to, not necessarily a way to sort of get rid of it, because obviously that's not going to happen, but to sort of treat it, I guess?
Yeah, I think the only sort of discussions I had, so I had sort of an appointment with a specialist nurse and obviously a consultant and so forth, and it was, we'll start you off on the sort of baseline medication, which was misazoline at this point. And I was told very much that, things would get back to normal. It might just take a little bit time. And I may need to adjust my life a little bit as far as just slowing down a little bit. That was the only thing they kind of really said at that point. But it didn't work like that. I think I'd got myself so worked up to the diagnosis stage that I was just in a flare. But because my calprotectin levels kept saying that things were coming down, that's what they were going off, but my symptoms were still there. And so I had quite a fight on my hands over months, going back and forwards to my IBD nurse and consultant to explain, look, I'm really not well. I don't think this shouldn't be what I should feel like, surely. This can't be normal. I remember having to take photos and sending photos of what I was passing in the toilet on emails and stuff like that, which is not pleasant. And it just felt just awful, absolutely awful. And I just kept fighting. And eventually the consultant said, oh, I think you know an iron. Let's get you an iron infusion. I think you'll feel better once you have an iron infusion. Had an iron infusion. I had a reaction to the iron infusion. which they didn't believe. So I had to kind of fight that and say, I don't feel well. And it seemed to make my symptoms worse, but it's probably the anxiety that probably made it worse as well. And it kind of just that first sort of 18 months to 2 years, I felt like I was just constantly fighting for this can't be right. This can't be how I'm supposed to live my life. And it got to the point where I paid and went private and had a private consultation. And upon examination, they could see the ulcer straight away and said, your medication's not working. So fast forward, they wrote to my consultant and I was put on sort of the next level of drugs, which was azathioprine. And that, for me, it's been sort of the turning point. It's what I call finding your magic. You have to find the right drug. I don't think they explain that very well at the beginning, that it can take a bit of settling and finding the right thing. So yeah, for me, it was getting the right drug first, fundamentally, that got me a bit more stable, and then I was able to work on things.
That's true. I mean, I definitely get that, because everybody is different, and that's why it's really important. I know we'll get onto your Instagram page in a moment, and one of the things that's really important that I think it says on there is it says not medical advice. Absolutely. Because everybody is different. And again, that's one of the main things of the podcast as well. It's all about great stories, great people, but please don't take it as medical advice. I'm not.
Absolutely. There are stories of people who get the first drug and it works wonders, and they are in a better place very quickly. It just wasn't for me. It took a while. It is very individual. That's what I've learned throughout having IBD and connecting with people, that everybody's story is so different, and you must seek that medical advice and you must get the right medical treatment. You can't do it alone.
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. So yes, if you do have any sort of symptoms, please see a doctor. Don't take our medical advice, because we're not doctors.
No, definitely.
But so from there, diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And then, because and I have this conversation with a lot of people, and they tend to fall into sort of two camps. In sort of one camp, you have people that want to know everything. They want to know about the condition, about what it means for them, what they can do to help it, and in some cases solve it, but in this case, what they can do to sort of reduce flares and things like that. And then you have the other side, which is sort of, well, I have it, but I don't really want to know anything about it. I don't know anything about it, and I just sort of crack on with life. Did you fall into one of those two camps when you were first diagnosed, or were you sort of somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, definitely one. I needed to know what on earth was this, how, because I had so many symptoms, I need to understand, what it is, what it's doing. And I also wanted to know, the next steps. And I don't know whether that's a good thing sometimes, because I think it can heighten your anxiety. So you have to be in the right place of how much you want to engage and know what the disease can lead to. But I like to know those things, and I think connecting through Instagram and seeing people live a normal life, with the disease, is really inspiring. And I think that, for me, that help, it helped me a great deal.
Definitely. And if we move on to your Instagram page, and you set it up, as you said, to connect with people who have IBD or IBS or something similar. I know IBD and IBS are not similar, but to have sort of similar symptoms, so that, and some people set pages up to sort of, and I know I did as well, to sort of try and connect with people and try and have that sort of, because it can feel quite lonely at times, where you think, am I the only person going through this? Am I the only person? And again, 99% of the time it's not. There's several people going through exactly the same sort of symptoms and things like that. But in essence, why did you think, right, I need to set this page up now and see what?
Yeah. So I had my own sort of personal page, and I had started to post a little bit about that. And actually, I found out that there was a couple of people that I work with actually have ulcerative colitis as well, which was just bizarre, because, I work with them, didn't know. And I thought, right, okay, well, this is my personal page and I do some work stuff. And I thought, this maybe isn't the appropriate place to do it. If there's people that I know that's got it, there's obviously lots more people out there. Let's find out about it. Let's really educate myself on what this disease is. So I set up my own Instagram page, because to me, I wanted to make sure that nobody felt lonely like I did at the beginning. Like, what nurse is this? Like, if I can help anybody in any way, let's do it. At the very beginning when the GP spoke to us about it being bowel cancer, I remember having a conversation with my husband saying, if it is, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to share my experience. And then it was like, right, well, you haven't got bowel cancer, but you've got this disease. You hadn't heard of it. So there's a lot of people out there who haven't heard of it. And if maybe had I known the symptoms a little earlier, maybe would have gone to the GP a bit earlier. Who knows? But there'll be people out there having those sort of thoughts. So let's get it out there. So it was twofold. It was for me to connect with people, but also to hopefully help others as well.
That's the second point of that is really, really important, I find, because one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, because you align very much with this podcast, and in terms of what I want to do, it's all about positivity, and it's all about helping people, and it's all about, yes, raising awareness, not sort of shying away from some of the difficult points, but also about going, yes, you're not alone in this, and yes, there are lots of other people who have very similar symptoms or have a similar condition to you, and it's about that positive journey and sharing your experiences. So that's why, one of the reasons, there's several other reasons as well, but one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, because you are very, very positive, and I love that, and it definitely aligns with my thoughts and feelings and what this podcast is all about. So when you started to share your story, started to connect with people, you also started getting into fitness as well. Did you do some sort of fitness beforehand, before going to finding a coach, or did you go right straight into finding a coach and then starting from there?
Yeah. So if I go back to being a child in PE, that was just never me. I didn't do well at school with PE. But when I left school, I always did do some kind of activity. I was very much into going to different classes, and I enjoy that kind of, clubber-size, that kind of thing. And then, I did HIIT classes and, all those sort of things. And I did used to go to the gym in my 20s, but it was never to lift weights. It was cardio and a bit swim, that kind of thing. But after I'd had my daughter, things just flicked off, I suppose, because life gets busy in other areas. And I suppose I took less care of myself in that sense. So the exercise stopped a bit. But then with IBD, once I started to feel well enough, I would still make sure I got out for walks. So even at my worst, I'd say I was still going out for little walks, and my husband would trail us around the riverside where we live, and I had to work out where the toilets were so I could stop for a little break. But I needed to get out the house because I knew that it was about the brain, the mental health side of it, and I knew that would help. So, I'd go for a little bit, then I'd come back and have a sleep. And then, so I'd always kind of done little bits in the beginning of my diagnosis. I then went on and did some yoga and meditation, because I thought, well, like on the anxiety side of things, if I can control my stress levels, that's going to help with the gut. So I did a bit of yoga and so forth. And I've got a cross trainer in the kitchen, and I started back on that, doing that in the kitchen at the night time. And I was enjoying it, really starting to enjoy it. And then I got to the point where I was got almost to sort of like the remission phase. I thought, I'm feeling a bit stronger, I'm ready to do something else. And then I started to think about what else that was. Now, with IBD, even in remission, it can still be unpredictable. So the idea of going to a class and maybe needing the bathroom in the middle of it, the anxiety of that was just not going to work. I thought that's not going to work. So it's like, well, what do I do? Well, I haven't got the energy to go back to doing some of the stuff I've done. And then I've been looking on pages, and I've been following Laura, IBD Fitness, for a little while. I've been having conversations with her throughout my sort of journey, and I'd noticed that she'd joined AO with Dan, and I thought, we'll give it a go. We'll give him a call. And I'll be honest, I thought I'll do a month and that'll be it. And I'm a year on, which I never ever expected. And the idea of stepping in the gym absolutely horrified, as if I'm honest, at this point in my life. It was like, you see all these people in little night bits and looking all cool, and I was like, not for me. That's not going to work. But I have, and I've done it, and yeah, so
Fantastic. No, well done you, because that is, I think, and I'm always an advocate for any type of fitness, but I'm very much an advocate of finding what works for you and because everybody's very much different. But I also believe there is something out there for everybody.
Yeah.
Because I think also when people talk about fitness and they think, oh, I've got to join a gym and I've got to do this and I've got to lift loads of weights or I've got to run 10 miles or, all of this stuff. And it's just not true. It's just not true at all. So there are hundreds of different sports, hundreds of different team activities, individual activities, as well as the gym and the running. They're just the sort of more well-known and more popular things. But there are hundreds of activities that you can do. And I'm very much somebody who thinks that there is something out there for everybody. But it's really good to hear that you were very much active sort of pre-joining the gym as well. So then if we move on to you with Dan, and obviously we talked a little bit as well about Laura with Dan as well. I do feel like I'm doing his work for him and advertising him. So I think he owes me some royalties, or at least a podcast episode at the very least. But yeah, no, so he obviously works wonders with you and with Laura. How did you find, because you do online coaching with him, which is very much different, as I found with doing face-to-face coaching, or having someone sort of standing beside you. How did you feel about some online coaching to start with?
So in the beginning, I was like, oh, how is this going to really work? Like an app and somebody at the end of a message and stuff. Wasn't really sure. I thought, give it a go. And the way I looked at it as well was, with anything in life, if you don't give it a go, you don't know. You've got to give it a go. I thought, I've got everything to gain and nothing to lose, so let's just give it a go. Join up for a month. And the first time I stepped into the gym, I was scared, nervous, but I was able to message him and you chat back to us and tell us what to do. And just that reassurance where I think if I had somebody in person doing it with us, I think I would have felt even more anxious having somebody alongside us, because I think there would have been an expectation. And I think that would heighten the anxiety, which would have played with my gut, and then I might not have got there. So actually the online side worked for me because I could choose to go at a time that suited me. I didn't have to decide to go in the morning, because mornings are quite tricky with IBD for a lot of people. So I could go when it suited me. And he's just there at the end of a message at any point when you needed any support. And I remember at the beginning, like looking in the gym thinking, oh my God, look at these machines. Like, they look scary pieces of equipment. They look like something they're going to torture you with. And I was quite frightened. So we started off really small. I mean, before I even stepped to the gym, we did sort of like just stuff in the house with little weights and so forth. So I'd kind of built up. And it was just about going slow. He's always there to support and guide, and just that accountability as well. So set out what you've got to do, and that accountability works as well for me. But I think the whole online side, it was being able to have that flexibility to do the sessions when worked for me was what really worked.
Fantastic. There's just 2 points from that I was going to pick up on that I think are really, really useful for anybody starting their fitness journey. The first point was, you said you'd give it a month. And I know you said you give it a month and you thought, I'll just go and do something else or whatever after the month. I think a month is a really good unit of measurement to start off a fitness journey. Because I see all the time, January the 1st, people get out and they say, I'm going to start running and I'm going to do it every day and I'm going to do 1 mile on Monday and 2 miles on Tuesday. And it just that's just not realistic. That doesn't work. But committing to that month, and I know you said you had accountability as well, but committing to that month and saying, right, I'm going to do this for the month, and then just see what happens, I think is an excellent way to start. Did you sort of randomly choose a month, or did you think, right, this is going to, how did you come to that measurement?
So I think it was just a sort of the way he offered different packages. So a month worked well, and obviously finances come into these sort of things as well. So you've got to find the right person for you if you're going to go down that coach route. We'd had a conversation, and I felt really comfortable with the conversation. I thought, he's a good guy. Let's give it a go. I'm happy to invest that money. And then as I started to do it, I thought, actually, it's not investing the money, investing in yourself. And I think that switch of my mind, where before I don't think I'd really thought of it like that. Like, I always thought of like the gym as an expense. And obviously I'm a mum with a teenage daughter, which costs a fortune. And I thought, I wouldn't think twice of paying something for her. But if I don't invest in myself, I'm not going to be there for her. So it's like just switching my mindset and thinking, actually, you're doing this for yourself to be there for others as well. You don't want her to see you get unwell and worse and worse. And if that means paying out a bit of money and signing up to a gym and having a coach, let's just do it. Let's keep going.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent explanation, I think, from people are thinking, well, should I do this or should I do that? It's a wonderful investment in you. And as you said, not only are you investing in you, you're investing in the people around you as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is a lovely way of looking at it. And the second point I was going to pick up on was the gym. People sort of say, oh, it's a bit intimidating. It's a bit, I don't really know what to do, and this, that, the other. And you said you had Dan sort of messaging and saying like, do this, do that, do the other. How long did it take before you sort of thought, right, I'm really comfortable in the gym now? And did that sort of start straight away, or did that take a little bit of time?
I think if I'm honest, it probably took a good sort of 6 months before I would say I felt more comfortable in what I call the big weights, sort of part of the gym. I was fine on like the cardio and the lifting like a dumbbell and things like that, but actually using some of the big machines, it was more towards probably like that 6 month mark. So it hasn't been fast, just slowly, gradually building up. But then I think it was really funny because I pulled my shoulder last week and I had to take everything on a notch quite a bit. And it made me realise just how far I've actually come in some of the machines that I just would never have dreamt of using. That I actually feel really comfortable in it. And, I'm not worried about it now. And everybody there is not looking at you. They're there doing their own thing anyway. So,
that's the point. I think a lot of people feel self-conscious. They, everyone's looking at me. And there's a big sort of, unknown secret to that. Nobody cares. It's like they think, everyone's looking at me, and this is like, no, they're doing their own thing. They don't really care about you. It's not in a horrible way, but like they're doing their own thing. But I think sometimes, again, like we said, there's different exercises for different people and different forms of exercise. But I think generally people think, the gym's going to be really intimidating. They're all going to be incredibly muscle bound and lifting all of this, that, the other, and everyone's going to look at me, and they don't. They really don't. It's that. But getting over that sort of self-consciousness, I think, is obviously a really, really important part. And if we move on slightly to one of your big loves I've seen is traveling.
Yeah.
And traveling around. Was there sort of a concern that when you were diagnosed that traveling would be a bit different, or did you think, well, I'm still going to do this, I'm not going to let this stop me type thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time I travelled abroad was actually see one of my best friends get married in Spain, and that was massive. And right up until the very end, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I had the promise of a friend who would travel over and bring us back if I wasn't well, that kind of thing. So I had support there, and I was like, I've got to make it. I've got to be able to do this. So I'd had conversations with my IBD team about things, and they give me sort of backup drugs, let's say, that I could take in case things got worse. So that gives us that bit of reassurance. And I just had to realise I needed to, so I was in quite a bad flare at the time and I was on steroids. So I realised I needed to sort of conserve my energy throughout the week to make the wedding. It was just adapting things a little bit and just, go and plan. So, I travelled And I got one of the little lanyards that you can wear in the airport so that I didn't have to wait in the queues at the security. And all those little things just took the anxiety away, which did help. And it was amazing. I was so glad I made it. It was such an achievement. And now I kind of look and think, well, if I did that then, I can just do whatever now. I don't, it's part of me now. I've got to learn to live with it. I haven't got to fight it. It's just work your way around it, and being planned, I think, helps as well, and having supportive people around you as well.
Yes, that's an important thing. As you were saying, that was something that I thought about, is having that support network around you, whether it's like IBD nurse, whether it's friends, family, but having that sort of like, and it seems to me as though you had a lot of sort of safety nets in and around, and you thought, okay, if this happens, it's okay because I've got this, and if this happens, it's okay because I've got that.
Absolutely.
And I think, I guess, for anybody who is, and everybody's very much different, important to make that point. But if you do have worries about traveling or whatever, have those safety nets, because I think that's incredibly important. So in terms of traveling, you said you traveled to Spain. Have you got any other things that you really want to do traveling wise?
Yeah, so later in the year we're going to Orlando. We had a holiday before COVID and it got cancelled, so we're actually doing Orlando at the end of the year, and I'm really looking forward to it. But it's also, we're visiting Disney, so as you can imagine, it's going to be pretty full on. So it's just being planned ahead for it as well, and make sure you've got that, obviously, sign off from your IBD nurse, your team, that it's okay for you to travel and so forth, especially if you're in a flare. Sometimes I think they don't like you to, depending on obviously how well you are. But make sure you've got those measures into place. But I'm really looking forward to that. And I am a little anxious of it. I have already discussed it with my IBD team. So we've already said, before I go, we'll stick a calprotectin test in and just check that my levels are good, so that I know that I'm going out and things aren't starting to ramp up or anything like that, which I think is helpful. But I've kind of got that toolkit now as well, like with some of my medication that I can take and manage things. Because like I say, even though I'm in like remission, I still have symptoms. Probably, once a week I have a bit of a rough day or so.
That's it. No, that sounds brilliant, and very neatly brings us on to sort of my final question as we wrap up. In terms of you and yourself, I know we talked about traveling and what you have planned for the future in traveling, but in terms of you, your fitness, what would you like to be, or what would you like to see in the future for you?
For me, to basically be the best version of myself that I can be. It's it sounds cliche, but I want to do that. I want to create a good impression for my daughter, because now, obviously, with research, I understand that IBD, it can be hereditary. So obviously I have a teenage daughter, so I'm concerned that she may end up with it. So I want to make sure that I show a positive way of dealing with it, so that she can have open conversations if she's ever unwell or there's any symptoms. I want her to see that fitness should be part of lifestyle and not an add-on as well. And, the importance of that, both for your mental well-being and physical well-being. I want to get to a point where I'm older and I can still help her if she has grandchildren, things like that. So I suppose she's probably one of my biggest drivers. It's being the best I can be to be there for her.
Brilliant. That sounds absolutely fantastic. And I wish you all the best with traveling, with fitness, with everything else. And thank you ever so much for joining me.
No problem. Thanks very much. It's been fun. Thank you.